Okay, we'll now go on to our next committee, which is the Parks and Recreation Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember April Barker.
All right, we have 3 items for committee, and I'm joined today with Councilmember Vargas and Murphy. The first item for committee is a bid award for Blodell Donovan Park floating dock and piling replacement. Leslie?
Leslie Bryson, Parks and Recreation Director. We are asking council to award the bid for replacement of the docks at Blodell Donovan. They were installed in 1983 and need to be replaced. The work has to be done during an in-water work window, which happens during the winter. I think there's another one in the middle of summer, but that wouldn't be an ideal time to do work on docks. This project was initially delayed because of not having a capital budget at the state level, and this is a project that's funded with a grant. However, the Recreation and Conservation Office recently notified us that they would grant a waiver of retroactivity, meaning we could spend the money in advance and get reimbursed once the capital budget is adopted. Because the docks are in such bad shape, we don't know if they'll last through another winter. We decided we should go ahead with this project and spend the money and then get reimbursed. The boating facilities money is a specific pot of money, so it can't be used for anything else but these projects. And our project was ranked number 2, so we're fairly confident that we will eventually get that money. And we would ask that council award the bid for $359,769.83 to Bellingham Marine Industries.
Okay, committee? Pinky?
Well, I walk on that about once a week, and it's getting scarier and scarier. So I would absolutely vote to approve the budget adoption for the paying for the new dock at Blodell Donovan.
Any other committee members? Just a clarification, so it looks like there'd be a full reimbursement if we were awarded the money from the capital, but we haven't quite been awarded. We're just ranking really high and you're expecting to get the money?
We rank number 2 on the list of projects once the capital budget, there's plenty of money in the account to reimburse us for the full amount of the grant award, which is $269,168, and then we're using local money of $91,000. They do have some funds remaining from an earlier biennium, so we can get reimbursed for $66,731 right away.
Excellent. Okay. With no further comments, we have a motion to approve the lowest responsible bidder. Let's see, it was Bellingham Marine Industries, Ferndale, for $359,769.83. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, our second item for committee is a resolution to increase fees at Arnie-Hanna Aquatic Center. And it looks like we'll have Melissa in your new role.
I'd like to introduce Melissa Bianconi. She is our new recreation manager as of September 1st, replacing Dick Henry, who retired almost a year ago now. So Melissa is in charge of the Arnie-Hanna Aquatic Center. And because of the new minimum wage law, with minimum wage going up gradually every year, we need to increase all our fees at Arnie-Hanna, and City Council approves facility rental fees. So we're asking you to approve this increase for 2018.
Okay, Melissa, do you have any specifics that you wanted to?
This represents about a 5% across the board increase. This is a budget net neutral proposal. We were able to eliminate one really lightly used program to save a lot of staff time with our lifeguarding staff. So overall, this represents about a $37,000 revenue increase and decreases cost by about $3,000. So overall, this is a very nice proposal to handle the minimum wage increase.
Committee members, Roxanne?
Well, I viewed this through 2 lenses. As a council member, I really appreciated that it wouldn't necessarily impact the people who recreate there regularly. And then I also viewed this from the lens of my day job where we rent out the pool. And so I really appreciated that it was really such a nominal increase, and this won't be an impact to our budget hardly at all. And I really like the way that this was handled, so thank you.
Pinky, do you have anything?
I had a question. Just out of curiosity, it says an adjustment to fees for shorter open swim time blocks. What does that mean?
We have multiple time blocks for our public swim times. Some of them are shorter than others. We used to offer a 50% discount for the shorter swim times. It didn't really add up to a deep discount, though, based on the amount of minutes that were actually in that block of time. So rather than offering the 50% discount, we just do a $1 off during that time.
So it's not, we're not reducing the amount of swim times, it's just the fees that we're, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Borman?
Yeah, the fees that we charge the school districts for swim, is that listed in here in terms of?
No, that's a separate contract. So
Okay,
that,
are they being increased by 5%?
not in their existing contract, but that is something to consider for their upcoming contract next year.
Yeah.
Did we have a signed contract with them for the entire school year that was negotiated before we knew we were going to have to increase these fees? So their contract for swim teams will go through the school year, and then next year they would pay the increased amount.
What about the private swim team club? Is that reflected in this?
Well, they also have a contract, but once that is renegotiated, they would pay the higher fee as well.
Melissa?
I can add that sometimes the private swim team, the BBST, and the school district, they might need the facility more than what's in their contract, and they might need to add blocks of time. They would be subject to this increase on those.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've got some problems with this in terms of how these are structured. I know 5% isn't much, but when we originally worked to get that there, it was for public swim, and the biggest blocks of time go to the schools and to the public swims things, so there's not a whole lot of public time for the real public to use it, and they're not being increased, but the individual users are. And looking at this one, the whole facility, you're increasing from 225 to 230, which is not 5%, but the individual swimmers, you're making sure you're getting 5% from them. So that doesn't seem very equitable to the general public. So I've got problems with how you're structuring this.
So are you wanting them to open up the contracts with the other groups?
Well, I'm wanting that to happen, but also look at your numbers here. They're saying 5%, but these aren't 5%. And so I think there's a problem with that.
I think it'd be helpful to have some context here. My assumption is that the operation of the Arnie Hanna is heavily subsidized from general fund dollars. These fees do not recover full costs. We're asking users to pay a fee which covers part of the cost. I'm wondering, is there any, can you ballpark what percentage of costs we're recovering in the fee structure for these rental times?
Well, in general, our revenue from either rentals or swim lessons or any program fees cover about 50% of the operational cost of the pool. What these cover, a percentage of rentals, because that varies, how much we rent the facility for private parties, for example, it would be a whole facility rental. So that varies how much we do that. So I can't say, but we looked at the budget in total and came up with a way of increasing so we could get the amount that we need to cover the increase in the minimum wage.
So I guess to me the real policy consideration is that we keep these fees low by the fact that we're drawing on general fund public subsidies so that these fees are low and hopefully they're more affordable. So it isn't just they're going up 5%, they're reduced, they're a reduced fee that's going up. You see what I'm saying? And if we're staying near the 50% threshold, is that our policy guideline? And I can't remember if we ever talked about why we chose 50 or approximately half for recovery on the regular fees and whatever the recovery is on these block rentals.
And in addition to these facility costs that you set, we also have our program fees, which we're also increasing by a similar percentage. And we did some rounding as well and looked at those areas that probably could handle higher fee than not. And the contracts, once those contracts are up for renewal this year, they will be paying the higher fees.
Okay, Roxanne.
I just appreciate that I'm sure you looked at this for where we could have wiggle room and what would not decrease participation at our pool, and I value that. So I'm going to move that we pass the resolution to increase the fees as such at Arnie Hanna Aquatic Center.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Further discussion, Terry?
I still have the question on the whole facility. Why wasn't that bumped to 5%? You said it was. I know it's not a whole lot, but it's.
It should have been $10 instead of $5.
It should have been $11.25.
Yeah.
But if you're giving the individual a 5% increase or whatever, then and if you're saying it's a 5% increase, then it should be for those.
Well, we could certainly change that one and make it 5%.
That's what you said you were going to do, so I think it should
Well,
be.
in general, we're increasing fees by 5% to recover the cost. But looking at each program area, we don't have a lot of full facility rentals, so.
So there's a motion on the table to recommend approval that the current document that's in front of us. Terry, do you have an amendment to that motion?
He's not on the committee.
Well, I'm not in this committee, so I can't. I'll have to make it tonight.
yeah,
I'm just
sorry.
hoping somebody on the committee will bump it up.
Is there any further
so-
discussion from the committee? Okay, with that, we have a motion to recommend approval to the full committee to pass Resolution 2016-31 that establishes facility rental fees at Arnie Hanna Aquatic Center, approximately a 5% increase. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. With that, I will bring forward a unanimous recommendation. And then our last item for committee is strategic plan and project expenditures guidelines for 2017-2018 greenways. Hello, Nicole.
Nicole Oliver, our Parks Development Manager, is here to present an update to our Greenway Strategic Plan. In the Greenway 3 levy, the strategic plan was developed to provide guidelines for acquisition projects. In the Greenway 4 levy, it's being updated to provide guideline for expenditure for both acquisition and development projects. And the Greenway Committee has been working on this most of this year to make recommendations for prioritizing just the first 2 years of Greenway revenue and just for acquisition and development. As you may recall, last summer we asked you to budget the maintenance money, the 25% maintenance money, which you did, and we've already started spending that. So this is, and these proposals for these projects are in the 2018, some of them are in the 2018 midterm biennium budget changes, and then the rest will be reflected in the 2019 budget.
Okay. Hi. Nicole Oliver, Parks Development Manager. And yes, the effort, we do have one member of our Greenways Advisory Committee here, Jeanette Kaiser. Thank you for coming. We do have someone from Parks Board as well, Michael Chavario. And we did spend a considerable amount of effort. It was one of those types of processes that was a little bit painful, but it really worked. And we only tackled the first 2 years, 17 and 18, because A, Tim Wall retired in May, and to that end, I have a new park planning and development coordinator starting on January 2nd. Her name is Janice Blitnikoff, and I'll be bringing her in to see you soon. So what this plan does, the last strategic plan Greenways had was in 2011. So we took, Tim left us these 11 by 17 Atlas gazetteers that he called them. They were about 20 pages of maps. He compiled all of the pro plan priorities for open space, trails, parks, your resolutions for greenways, existing greenways, remaining strategies that hadn't yet been implemented. We also had presentations by Public Works, Chris Como, about the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, just kind of really looking at where we were at and what we'd completed. And then they had done, the greenways in 2016 had done a pretty robust evaluation process of all of their remaining strategies. So we went back and looked through all of those and really tried to hone in on the critical pieces that they wanted the program to focus on. So it does, this document that's in your packet is only 4 pages. The other one was about 23. So we shortened it up. And like Leslie mentioned, the capital maintenance was really addressed by staff, and you guys already allocated that money in those projects. I'll touch on those at the end of the presentation. So these are the key priorities, and I'm going to show you some maps of some of these so you know where they are. Squalicum Creek, the lower section of Squalicum Creek, the railroad corridor, development of the community park at Cordata, furthering feasibility of Squalicum Pier, 2 new neighborhood parks, the James Baker View, King Mountain area, and Happy Valley, and then a handful of really priority key trail connections. Some of them might be able to be accomplished with wayfinding, and some property in between King and Queen Mountain that we call the Royal Valley. So this is the trail connection, the lower Squalicum Creek corridor. We are actively pursuing this property, doing some consultant work, and it is very active. That goes all the way down to the bay, up to, and it would connect at almost to Orchard, and it would be the link between the bay and the rest of the Squalicum Creek Bay to Baker Trail. Very important, very high priority. This is the Cordata Community Master Plan. We are in design phase right now. We're focusing on the north node, which includes a parkour course, a spray park, a pump track, shelter, a playground, parking, and then it will also, the whole phase 1 will also include all of the trail throughout the park. And it's really coming along. We're doing a pre-application, internal pre-application with staff tomorrow on 30% design. We still need a name for that park, though, so we're working on that. Squalicum Pier. This is the Lehigh Cement Company's pier, Tilbury. We're calling it Squalicum Pier now. We have requested $500,000, which is a lot of money, for some really getting much more significantly into design and feasibility of what it would take to make this a publicly accessible and usable overwater walkway. We did some work in 2013. We did some more work this year, and now it's going to take kind of a full court press to really move this thing along and see if it's actually feasible. This is what I call the big open emptiness of parks in the north, neighborhood parks. We're going to be hearing more of that. You're going to see some more of that next week when I bring you the level of service equity study analysis that I've been doing, we've been doing. So the focus for Greenways Advisory Group and is this area specifically right in here. And although there are a lot of development happening, which I've been working with developers to really try and connect the trail corridors from the North Bellingham Trail Plan through their projects, we still need a park, and that's going to be the top priority of the new park planning and development coordinators, finding some property. We've had a couple things that were possible, but they're not quite panning out. And then the other park they've identified as a priority is this Happy Valley Neighborhood Park that's also in the pro plan. Key trail connections. There's quite a few of them. This is the complete list, and I'm going to highlight a few of them. Whatcom Creek, generally, there are some pieces left of that corridor that are a little more tough, a little more difficult to negotiate. One that comes to mind is the bus barn that the school district owns there. And then I'll show you a few more. This is one that came up that might be a wayfinding opportunity, and it's connecting Roosevelt Neighborhood Park to the creek. This is lovely Iowa. We've been unsuccessful at trying to negotiate some corridors through some of these redeveloped auto dealers, but we're going to try and do something there that might be a combination of wayfinding just to get people back and forth. The stairway at Maury's easement, this, we do have the easement, which you got in 2016. We still need this property down below to build a stairway to it. This is the BNSF Lower Squalicum Creek property that we talked about earlier. Connecting the future Cornwall Beach at the end of the waterfront up to Depot Market. The concept would be that there would be some sort of connection up or adjacent to Wharf Street up to Depot. This is a key, what the Greenways really feels is a key connection, pedestrian access to the future park down here at Cornwall Beach, and then this will eventually be linked into the parks that we're working on the waterfront. This is another one that has come up in some development proposals lately with the school that's trying to put something together in this parcel, but we want to get people from the Barkley Trail up and across and connected up to the Squalicum Creek Trail. We've got some pretty significant environmental constraints right here, but that's another one that's a big priority for Greenways. And then this is a really beautiful aerial shot of what they call the Royal Valley. We own property up here, and we own property over here. And so what we want to do is acquire something that will connect these two, and then eventually that will link to the west to Van Wyck Park. And the corridors that I'm working on in the development proposals that have been coming forward are all trying to link up through the Bakerview, Telegraph, King Mountain, James, up toward this area. So we will eventually have some really nice pedestrian ways to get through the north. And lastly, capital maintenance, I just want to let you know what's been going on. We have been actively pursuing, we have a contract with a consulting firm who's speccing out all of these different projects, and we're moving forward on the grandstand, north grandstand roof of Civic Field. We're working on repairs to the concrete. It continues to leak in new ways every day. The ball field lighting, we've spec'd that out to redo the lighting in Jerry Field. And we are looking at the Wharf Street trestle tomorrow, or actually Wednesday and Thursday. Some engineers are going to come up and go under this and really take a close look at what it's going to take to fix this. And we have completed the Seaholm Arboretum roof. And that's where we're at with those. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, committee members. Pretty thorough. Roxanne?
I just move that we approve the strategic plan and project expenditure guidelines for the 2017-28 Greenway program.
All right, we have a motion to approve the strategic plan. I will say you and the committee themselves took great direction, I think, from the council on that equity piece, and we see with all of that development toward the north and then all the focus projects. And that Happy Valley piece is also quite important as well. So I think that council direction with not only the master plan, but in our comprehensive plan was followed through.
Right.
The one that I didn't see on there is, along with trying to understand that equity piece, it was also equity and access to the waterfront.
That's coming
Is that
on
coming
Monday
up?
too?
Okay, excellent. And Michael?
Yes, thank you, Nicole. Excellent work, and I always appreciate the emphasis on connectivity and through corridors. But I do have I guess I want to point something out. On this project here, I don't know what we're going to call it, down to the future park. This requires crossing of the rail line, and there's a road that crosses there now, but as I understand it, we actually don't have rights for that crossing. The Burlington Northern can take away the road crossing rights, can't they?
No, we currently have crossing rights at Wharf Street. when we were looking at relocating the rail line, I think they requested that we close that crossing. But we currently have the right to cross there.
Well, we currently do. I'm wondering that long term, I don't want us to be. My understanding is there's some uncertainty about whether or not long-term Bloomington Northern will let us continue to cross there. And my concern isn't just with this trail, but also with vehicular access across that crossing point. There's an element of uncertainty on that.
No, we definitely have a right-of-way there.
Okay. I'll
I
check
think
with
they
Ted.
would like it to be closed, but we have a right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think lastly with the Squalicum Pier, which I know has been past council members, that there's been a big focus of getting that. It's nice that we're getting close to there. There was some apprehension, I think, on all the different committees of how much money that was. And then there was some wonderful clarification that you gave, Leslie. And I can't remember if you gave it in a public arena like this or if we just did it in the parks. But I think it's helpful for people to understand that eventually you're going to have to help me, but there is a potential that if we find that that is not feasible, that there would be somebody else responsible for removing that, and that could save the city a great amount of money. However, if it is feasible to keep, then we'll have a better understanding of how we want to move forward. And it's a large sum of money, but it includes many different things. And will you be bringing, one, just a basic education, I think, for the people watching would be helpful. And then are you going to be bringing, are there going to be some triggers that you'll be coming back to council as you're using that money on feasibility? Because it also included design and other things.
We could come back once. I think we're going to have to get through a couple of key next steps, and then it's either going to be let's go or no.
Okay.
So once we get to there, that's going to be way before we use $500,000. So we'll let you know.
All right. And can you just give a little bit more clarification as to
Sure,
the importance of using some of this funding?
I think that came up in a discussion at the park board because they saw this same plan before it came to you at their meeting last month, and there was a question about spending $500,000 on what looked like maybe it was just feasibility, but we would, once we get to a certain point, if it's continue on, we would continue with design. If we're not going to be able to move forward, we do want to know that because we actually don't own the structure. It would be, part of this would be negotiating with Lehigh Cement Company. We own the land under the structure or under a portion of the structure, and that's the portion we would try and renovate and reopen. And we would negotiate with them either to acquire the structure on our land, or if we decided we didn't want to keep the structure, we would want them to remove it. So that's why the timing on this is critical, because their lease with DNR will be up in a couple of years.
Thank you, Leslie. Councilmember Hamel.
Thank you for recognizing me. Is there currently a protest in with Army Corps of Engineer regarding that facility?
Is there a what with the Army Corps?
Is there a protest in with the Corps of Engineers?
For the Squalicum Pier?
Right.
Not that I'm aware of.
Those protests, and I'm sitting next to an attorney, don't normally happen until permits are issued. But discussions obviously will go on before that.
Yeah, and I noticed you had tribal consultation was one of the higher up to make sure. All right, if there's no further questions, we have a motion to send recommendation to the full council to adopt the Strategic and Project Expenditure Guidelines 2017-2018 Greenways Program. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. I'll bring forward that recommendation, and with that, end of committee.
Thank you, April.